In the beginning, there was a realm where time felt endless, and the voices of gods and mortals mingled in echoes across the sky. At its heart stood Mount Olympus, crowned with clouds, shining in eternal splendor, a home of mystery and wonder. Upon its golden heights, thrones were more than seats of power. They were symbols of destiny, legacy, and eternal questions. And among them, one throne shone brighter than all others, the eternal throne. It called not only to the eyes but to the soul, whispering secrets too deep for simple power to hold. Zeus, king of the gods, ruler of storm and sky, sat upon this throne. Yet he too began to wonder, what lies beyond the thunder, beyond the crown, beyond the glory of his reign? The eternal throne held a mystery even Zeus had not yet unlocked. And so begins our story. A journey not of battles or conquest, but of wisdom, truth, and the search for what it means to truly rule. There are moments in eternity when even the mightiest feel silence pressing on them. And for Zeus, king of the gods, such a moment arrived on a star-filled night above Olympus. The air was still, and the marble halls stood quiet. Torches flickered without wind, shadows stretched, and in the distance, a sound stirred, faint and almost hidden. It was not thunder. It was not the crash of lightning that marked his rule. It was softer, almost fragile, a whisper carried from beyond time itself. At first, Zeus thought it was his own thoughts echoing in the grand emptiness of Olympus. A ruler's mind is never free from questions. What does it mean to hold power? To guide gods and mortals? To sit where fate itself bends to your command? These questions stirred within his heart. The sound grew clearer. It was not in his mind, it was around him, within him. It did not call his name, but something deeper, something eternal in his being. Seek, it breathed. A word that lingered in the halls like smoke rising in the air. Seek, and you will know the truth of the eternal throne. The eternal throne glimmered faintly. Gold shimmered as if touched by dawn, though the night ruled the sky. It was alive, watching, waiting. Zeus placed his hand on the armrest. A pulse traveled through him, warm and steady, like a heartbeat. The throne's voice, ancient and patient, stirred within him. He pulled back, unsettled. The throne had always been a symbol of victory, but now it felt like a guardian of secrets that stretched far beyond his reign. Zeus stepped outside into the night air. The summit opened before him. Endless skies stretched like a tapestry, and the constellations gleamed brighter than ever before. The stars leaned closer, as if eager to speak. His thunderbolt rested at his side, unused. Here he did not need power. He needed clarity. The whisper came again. Seek. Both command and invitation, both promise and challenge. A voice reaching back to the first dawn of creation itself. Zeus thought of his storms, his victories, the laws carved in stone. But this whisper suggested kingship was not in lightning or in thrones. It lay elsewhere. He stood in silence, listening. The stars, the air, the stillness, all seemed part of a single harmony. In it, he felt not fear, but longing to understand. Perhaps the throne was not his possession, but his teacher. Perhaps it chose him, not for might, but to see if he would seek beyond power. As the whisper faded, Zeus made a vow. He would follow where it led, not with armies or thunder, but with open eyes and a willing heart. The journey of the eternal throne had begun. The gods still laughed and feasted, but Zeus knew his path would be different, marked by hidden truths and wisdom. He turned back. The throne's glow dimmed but not gone. It pulsed faintly, as though pleased. Zeus smiled not in triumph, but in quiet resolve. For the first time in ages, the king of the gods felt not only like a ruler, but like a seeker. And that made all the difference. When dawn touched the marble steps of Olympus, Zeus summoned his kin, and the great halls echoed with the call, carrying across mountains and seas. One by one, the gods arrived, their presence filling the palace with light, sound, and the essence of eternity. Hera entered first, radiant and strong, a queen whose dignity carried both power and care. Her eyes searched Zeus's face, and found weight in his silence, sensing that something had stirred beyond storm and crown. Athena followed, wisdom in her gaze, her steps calm and measured, as though already preparing for a council of thought. Where others carried weapons, she carried clarity, and she knew this gathering would not be about war. Apollo came next, golden and bright, strumming a gentle chord on his lyre that softened the solemn air. "Every council is lighter with song," he said warmly, his music filling the marble hall with a glow. Poseidon's voice was steady as the sea when he entered, the floor trembling faintly under his presence. Yet his face carried no rivalry, only curiosity, as if he too had felt the call of something greater. Artemis arrived quietly, wrapped in the air of forests and stars, her silence sharper than many words. Hermes came swift and lively, words at the ready, while Demeter brought calm, and Hephaestus the steady glow of the forge. Zeus looked upon them all, not as a ruler holding thunder, but as a seeker asking to be heard. "My brothers, my sisters," he said. "Last night I heard a voice that spoke of something greater than storm or crown." The hall grew still, even the torches leaning in as though to listen to the king of the gods. "It was not thunder," Zeus continued. "It was a whisper that called me to seek the truth of the eternal throne." Hera's voice was firm yet gentle. "The throne is yours by right, Zeus. Why let doubt disturb what has long been secure?" Zeus shook his head. "It is not doubt, Hera. It is longing." The throne glowed, and in its light I felt a question. Athena's eyes shone with thought. "A throne is eternal, not for gold or stone, but for the wisdom it holds. Perhaps it tests you, Father." Apollo's fingers touched his lyre. "A song outlives the singer, not by strength, but because others carry its melody. Harmony is eternity." Poseidon leaned on his staff, his tone like waves. "The sea knows no throne. Tides return, and in their return lies something greater than rain." Artemis spoke softly, her words clear as moonlight. "Power fades, but memory endures. Perhaps eternity is what remains when storms fall quiet." Hermes grinned. "Stories endure. Mortals tell tales of us, and in their telling we live again. The eternal throne may be a story no one forgets. Each voice wove into the next, a tapestry of truths, different in shape, yet bound together in meaning." Zeus felt the whisper again, faint but present, like an unseen guest listening and approving the counsel. "My kin," Zeus said, "this is why I called you, not to declare or to command, but to seek together the meaning of the throne." Hera's gaze softened. Athena bowed slightly. Apollo let his melody fade, and silence filled with reflection. For the first time in ages, the gods gathered not for judgment or feasts, but for wonder. The eternal throne did not speak, yet its glow deepened, carrying a quiet promise that the journey had only begun. Night returned to Olympus with a silence unlike any other, and though the council had ended, its weight lingered in the marble halls. Zeus sat once more before the eternal throne, the chamber vast and quiet, columns reaching into shadow, the only light shining from the throne itself. The glow pulsed faintly, not steady like fire, but rhythmic like a heartbeat, and Zeus wondered how a seat of power could seem to breathe. He leaned closer, watching golden threads of light shimmer and weave across the arms of the throne, never still, always shifting. The king of the gods had faced storms and endless prayers, yet in the glow of the throne he felt small, as though listening at a doorway. "Eternal," he whispered, testing the word against silence, and the throne shimmered in faint acknowledgement of his voice. Zeus did not claim it. He sat before it, studying, waiting, listening, as the light slowly spread across the chamber walls. Within the glow, shapes appeared like shadows on water, first unclear, then forming into figures of rulers from ages past. They sat on thrones of stone, crystal, and wood, each glowing briefly before fading, their power dissolving like mist. Through it all, the eternal throne shone steady, untouched by time, as if to remind him that thrones rise and fall, but truth remains. Zeus exhaled, realizing he had held his breath, and silence returned, though it no longer felt empty. He placed his hand on the throne again, warmth flowing into him, not demanding but guiding, a presence forming without words. You are not the first, it seemed to say. You will not be the last, but you may be the one who listens. Zeus closed his eyes and saw not Olympus, but vast plains, oceans, and skies of worlds yet unborn, time stretching endlessly. He withdrew his hand as the light settled back into a calm pulse, the message clear: the throne belonged to none. Footsteps echoed in the hall, and Hera entered, her presence steady and strong, her gaze moving from Zeus to the glow. You have not left this chamber, she said softly. What does it show you? Visions, Zeus replied. Rulers forgotten, thrones dissolved. Yet this one remains. Hera stepped closer, her voice calm but piercing. Perhaps eternity is not in the throne itself, but in what it teaches. Have you asked what it wants? The thought startled him, the throne wanting something, and the glow deepened as though it agreed. Hera touched his hand lightly. Then listen, Zeus. Do not command it. Do not fear it. Just listen. Together they stood in silence before the golden glow, and Zeus felt not only the weight of kingship, but the promise of wisdom. The throne pulsed once more, steady and calm, and Zeus knew his journey was no longer about power, but meaning. Morning broke across Olympus, painting the sky in gold and rose. Yet within Zeus the glow of the throne lingered like a question that refused to fade. He stepped outside, letting the wind move through him, carrying cedar scent, bird song, and something else, a faint whisper hidden beyond the clouds. Zeus lifted his gaze to the horizon where valleys shimmered, rivers gleamed like silver threads, and mortal cities stirred awake beneath dawn's light. The whisper touched him again, not from the throne, but from the world itself, as though earth and sky were calling him to listen. He walked Olympus not as king, but as wanderer, every path alive, every breeze carrying fragments of hidden meaning waiting to be heard. In the gardens, Demeter tended the leaves, her presence warm as sunlight. She looked up and said, Eternity also lives in what grows and fades. Her words rooted within him, and the whisper stirred again, echoing through the rhythm of growth, harvest, and the turning of seasons. By the riverbank, Hermes perched lightly on stone, eyes bright with mischief. Perhaps the throne seeks not answers, but journeys, he said. Zeus chuckled, tasting the word. Journeys. The whisper danced like wind around them, playful, fleeting, impossible to hold in hand. At the waters, Poseidon rose with steady power, waves shimmering. The sea speaks without end, he said. Eternity is motion. The tide returns, always. Zeus watched the waters breathe in and out, endless rhythm of rise and fall. And there he felt the whisper steady and deep. In the forest, Artemis waited quietly, bow resting at her side. Do not chase the throne's voice, she said. Let it come, like the moon. Her words lingered like silver threads, and the whisper softened, patient, no longer urging him forward, simply waiting to be received. At last, Zeus climbed a lonely peak where air was thin and sky stretched vast. Silence pressed close, and the whisper grew stronger. It was no longer sound but presence, woven through earth, sea, and sky. It was not the throne. It was beyond it. Zeus closed his eyes, feeling himself open. No longer only king, he became a seeker, standing in wonder before the fabric of existence. Visions stirred, mortal laughter, bird flight, ocean tides, turning stars. Every piece a fragment of eternity, every moment a thread in something vast. The presence asked nothing but this. Will you see? Will you listen? Zeus breathed deeply and felt eternity, not as burden, but invitation, an endless rhythm of wonder he could step into. He opened his eyes, and the world glowed, valleys, forests, seas alive with the same golden light he had seen in the throne. The whisper faded into wind, yet Zeus knew it had not gone. It lived now in everything, carried through all that breathed. He turned back toward Olympus, slower, more thoughtful. The throne awaited, but he understood its glow was only the beginning of the path. For eternity was not locked in a single seat of power. It lived in voices, tides, moonlight, the turning of seasons, the rhythm of life. And to seek it was to walk, to listen, to never cease in wonder. The sun rose high over Olympus, scattering light across marble halls. Yet the mountain carried a quiet that the brightness could not dispel. The gods gathered again, not by command, but by curiosity, their eyes turning to Zeus, who entered the great hall without thunder or judgment. He carried no weapon, only wonder, and behind him the eternal throne glowed steady, spilling its light across the chamber floor like a silent invitation. Hera stood first. I have seen mortals build homes and raise children. Their stories endure when power fades. Perhaps eternity lies in what remains after us. Athena spoke next. Wisdom grows when shared, not when kept. A throne is eternal only if its lessons outlast its ruler. What truths do we leave behind? Apollo strummed his lyre, golden notes filling the silence. A song endures when others carry it. Eternity is harmony, a melody larger than a single voice. Artemis stepped forward, her voice cool as moonlight. The moon returns each month. Seasons turn. A throne endures not by force, but by faithful return. Poseidon's voice was deep and steady. The sea is eternity. Its tides never cease. Its waves never tire. We cannot rule eternity. We must move with it. Hermes laughed softly. Mortals tell our stories, some true, some not. But in their voices, we live again. Eternity may not be stone, but story that never dies. Demeter raised her hand, warm as harvest. Every seed carries eternity, not by lasting forever, but by continuing. What grows after us is also our legacy. Hephaestus spoke last, rough but steady. I forged things that broke, yet each left a mark. Eternity is not perfection, but sparks we leave behind. One by one, their voices wove a tapestry larger than themselves. Not debate, but reflection. Not power, but meaning shared. Zeus listened, and the throne pulsed gently with each truth, its light echoing the wisdom that filled the hall. Hera turned to him at last. You have heard us. What do you see now, Zeus? What does the eternal throne speak to you? Zeus rose slowly, eyes on the gods, then on the throne. The throne is not mine to possess. It is ours to learn from. Eternity belongs to no hand. He paused, the silence deep. Our eternity is not power kept, but meaning shared. Not storms commanded, but voices remembered. The gods bowed their heads, not in submission, but in agreement, and the throne glowed brighter as though sealing their counsel with approval. Olympus was no longer a mountain of power, but a gathering of wisdom, and the eternal throne promised that their journey had only just begun. Night descended on Olympus, the stars scattered above like silent witnesses, while the eternal throne glowed steady, its light soft as a heartbeat. Zeus walked the marble colonnade alone, his thoughts heavy with the council's words. Yet one question lingered. Why had the throne revealed itself now? The air shifted, not with thunder, but with something gentler, as if the night itself wanted to speak, and from the shadows stepped Themis, radiant and calm. Zeus, she said, her voice carrying centuries of wisdom. The eternal throne is no gift, nor burden. It is a reminder. You must hear the prophecy it holds. Zeus lowered his head slightly. Speak, Themis. I have heard wisdom from the gods, but I know there is more I must understand about this throne. Themis raised her hand, symbols of stars and rivers forming in the air. The throne speaks not of kingship, but of cycles, forgotten when power blinds the gods. Her words struck deep, and Zeus felt the weight of storms he had wielded for ages, questioning if they had ever truly protected what mattered most. Themis continued, her voice like a steady river. The prophecy says, the throne endures, but only humility can hear its wisdom. Pride will dim its light. Visions flooded Zeus's mind, abandoned cities, temples fallen silent, gods fading into whispers, as mortal faith slipped away like sand through open hands. The throne is eternal, Themis said, but the gods are not. Mortals carry memory, lose their faith, and Olympus becomes nothing more than silence. Zeus turned to the throne, its glow steady and unchanging, both comforting and unsettling, a beacon of hope and a mirror of fragility. "What must we do?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with urgency, as though the future itself hung on her answer. Themis's eyes shone like dawn. "Walk among mortals, not as rulers, but guardians. See their lives as mirrors of eternity, for their stories carry your legacy." Silence fell, yet it was no longer empty. For the first time, Zeus realized thunderbolts and storms could not keep Olympus alive. Only meaning could. Themis faded into silver light. The throne reflects what is offered. Pride brings emptiness, but wisdom and care will make it shine forever. Her voice lingered even as she vanished, leaving Zeus with a night that no longer felt hollow, but expectant, like fertile soil awaiting seeds. Zeus returned to the throne, his reflection shimmering in its glow. He placed his hand upon it gently, not as master, but as a student. "I hear you now," he whispered. "Eternity is not mine to command. It is ours to nurture, ours to share, ours to protect." The throne pulsed softly, its light deepening, as though acknowledging his words, turning warning into invitation, shadow into promise. Zeus felt a shift within. No longer a god clinging to power, but a leader willing to learn, willing to guide Olympus through meaning, not fear. The eternal throne would remain with or without them, yet their voices in mortal memory, their place in the cosmos, was theirs to protect. Under the starlit sky, the throne glowed brighter, carrying the prophecy's promise. The story of Olympus was not ending. It was still being written. Night descended on Olympus. The stars scattered above like silent witnesses, while the eternal throne glowed steady, its light soft as a heartbeat. Zeus walked the marble colonnade alone, his thoughts heavy with the council's words. Yet one question lingered. Why had the throne revealed itself now? The air shifted, not with thunder, but with something gentler, as if the night itself wanted to speak. And from the shadows stepped Themis, radiant and calm. "Zeus," she said, her voice carrying centuries of wisdom, "the eternal throne is no gift nor burden. It is a reminder. You must hear the prophecy it holds." Zeus lowered his head slightly. "Speak, Themis. I have heard wisdom from the gods, but I know there is more I must understand about this throne." Themis raised her hand, symbols of stars and rivers forming in the air. "The throne speaks not of kingship, but of cycles forgotten when power blinds the gods." Her words struck deep, and Zeus felt the weight of storms he had wielded for ages, questioning if they had ever truly protected what mattered most. Themis continued, her voice like a steady river. "The prophecy says, the throne endures, but only humility can hear its wisdom. Pride will dim its light." Visions flooded Zeus's mind, abandoned cities, temples fallen silent, gods fading into whispers as mortal faith slipped away like sand through open hands. "The throne is eternal," Themis said, "but the gods are not. Mortals carry memory, lose their faith, and Olympus becomes nothing more than silence." Zeus turned to the throne, its glow steady and unchanging, both comforting and unsettling, a beacon of hope and a mirror of fragility. "What must we do?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with urgency, as though the future itself hung on her answer. Themis's eyes shone like dawn. "Walk among mortals, not as rulers, but guardians. See their lives as mirrors of eternity, for their stories carry your legacy." Silence fell, yet it was no longer empty. For the first time, Zeus realized thunderbolts and storms could not keep Olympus alive, only meaning could. Themis faded into silver light. "The throne reflects what is offered. Pride brings emptiness, but wisdom and care will make it shine forever." Her voice lingered even as she vanished, leaving Zeus with a night that no longer felt hollow, but expectant, like fertile soil awaiting seeds. Zeus returned to the throne, his reflection shimmering in its glow. He placed his hand upon it gently, not as master, but as a student. "I hear you now," he whispered. "Eternity is not mine to command. It is ours to nurture, ours to share, ours to protect." The throne pulsed softly, its light deepening, as though acknowledging his words, turning warning into invitation, shadow into promise. Zeus felt a shift within, no longer a god clinging to power, but a leader willing to learn, willing to guide Olympus through meaning, not fear. The eternal throne would remain, with or without them. Yet their voices in mortal memory, their place in the cosmos, was theirs to protect. Under the starlit sky, the throne glowed brighter, carrying the prophecy's promise. The story of Olympus was not ending. It was still being written. Beyond Olympus, the mortal world stirred. Villages bustled, ships crossed seas, fires burned in hearths, carrying warmth and stories into the night. Zeus watched from the clouds, not at thrones or storms, but at the lives below, remembering Themis's words, "Mortals are the keepers of memory." One evening, Zeus descended, not in thunder or lightning, but as a traveler cloaked in dust, welcomed with bread and water by strangers at a fire. The villagers saw not a god, but a weary man with wonder in his eyes. They offered kindness, and Zeus listened to their laughter and their stories. They spoke of planting, of storms endured, of children singing songs long after elders were gone. Each story glowed brighter than marble. Each carried hope. A child asked softly, "Why do stars never fall?" Zeus smiled, "Because they carry dreams, and dreams do not fall, they rise." Days passed. Zeus saw love in small gestures, a loaf shared, a lullaby sung. These quiet acts wove eternity more tightly than thunder ever could. At night, the people told stories of gods, some fierce, some proud, some merciful. Zeus listened, realizing he lived in their voices, not on Olympus. "This is the flame," he whispered. "The mortal flame, not power, but story, not thunder, but hope." A storm gathered, dark and heavy. The villagers feared. Zeus remembered. Guardians, not rulers. He guided the storm away quietly, unseen, gentle as dawn. The people rejoiced, believing fortune had spared them. They never knew a god had walked their square, only that their fields stood safe in the Sunday. Zeus returned to Olympus, with their laughter in his heart. The gods asked what he had seen, and he spoke of bread, songs, storms, and flame. "The throne shines not for us alone," he said. "It shines when mortals remember us in story, not fear. We endure because they carry our light." Silence filled the hall, divine eyes glimmering. Eternity was no longer marble or lightning. It was the mortal flame, alive in human hearts. The eternal throne pulsed brighter, glowing like sunrise across Olympus, reflecting not power, but meaning found in the simplest of mortal lights. And Zeus felt peace at last, not as a ruler bound to storms, but as a guardian of stories, knowing the flame would endure forever. The eternal throne glowed brighter than ever, spilling its light across Olympus. But where light spreads, shadows always follow. Whispers stirred in the halls, voices of gods uneasy with the throne's truth. Each pulse revealed not power, but what they sought to hide. Hera asked, proud yet troubled, "If mortals carry our flame, will we fade when they forget?" Poseidon rumbled, "Mortals are fickle. They build, they break, they forget. Should eternity rest in their hands?" Athena rose, calm as moonlight. "Eternity lives through them. Without memory, we are statues. With memory, we breathe." Apollo whispered restless, "And what of mortals who curse us, who call us cruel?" The throne pulsed, and shadows took shape, distorted reflections of the gods themselves. Zeus watched. He knew the shadows were not enemies, but fears long buried. Themis's voice carried. "The throne shows light and shadow. Truths you'd rather ignore." The shadows whispered cruel doubts. To Ares, Without war, who are you? To Hera. Without loyalty, who honors you? To Poseidon. Without storms, will they sing your name? Each god shivered. The shadows spoke no lies, only questions they feared. Zeus rose. The shadows do not break us. They remind us. Eternity is not freedom from doubt, but courage to stand within it. The throne's glow steadied, balanced by doubt itself. Hestia, warm as firelight, said softly. Even the smallest flame casts a shadow. Without flame, no warmth, no home, no story. Her words calmed the hall. The shadows softened, no longer pressing, but resting in balance. Zeus stood before the throne, light and shadow painting his face. We are not eternal because we are flawless. We are eternal because mortals remember us, in love and in doubt. The chamber fell silent, not in fear, but in reflection. The throne did not demand perfection. It asked only to be remembered fully, with flaws and gifts alike. The shadows withdrew, sinking back into marble walls. The gods sat still, their hearts lighter, their eyes softened by truth. Zeus whispered, "Eternity is not the absence of shadow, it is the courage to shine despite it." From that day, the council no longer feared the glow. They welcomed its balance, its reminder that eternity lives where light and shadow meet. Whispers still moved through Olympus, but no longer a fear. They sounded like beginnings of gods, learning to be guardians, not rulers. The council had faced the shadows, yet the eternal throne still burned steady. But a question lingered. What of the mortal flame Prometheus had given so long ago? On Earth, fires flickered in every hearth, fragile sparks against storms and wars. Zeus looked down and remembered Prometheus's daring theft. Once, he had seen it as defiance. Now, he saw it as a gift. That flame was more than warmth. It was courage, invention, hope. It was eternity, carried in mortal hands. Zeus summoned the council. The throne shines because mortals remember, but their flame must endure. Do we guard it, or let it fade? Hera frowned. Poseidon grumbled. Athena's eyes glittered with thought. Hestia spoke, steady as fire. The flame is theirs, not ours. But even a flame must be tended. The gods remembered mortal prayers, not for conquest, but for safety, harvest, and warmth. What use was eternity if mortal flame faltered? Zeus nodded. We must guard not only Olympus, but the fire entrusted to humankind. The throne pulsed brighter, as if in approval. Its light reached down to earth, and mortals looked up, warmed by a glow they could not name. From the edges of memory, Prometheus stirred. I gave them fire so they might dream. Tend it well, Olympians. In their dreams, you live. Even Ares fell silent, stilled by the weight of those words. That night, Zeus walked the mortal world again, cloaked in quiet disguise. He found a child struggling to spark flame from ash. Zeus lifted a hand, unseen, and the fire leapt bright. The child laughed, thinking it luck. Zeus knew it was eternity. He carried that laughter back to Olympus. We are not eternal for storms or lightning, he told the council. We are eternal because the flame endures in mortal hands, Athena added, and in every story, every song, every dream. The council bowed, not in pride, but in understanding. They were not rulers above flame, but guardians beside it. The eternal throne glowed brighter than ever. Its light no longer belonged only to Olympus. It stretched into mortal hearths, candles, and dreamers watching the night sky. The gift of Prometheus lived on not as rebellion, but as bridge, not punishment, but promise. Zeus stood tall, thunder silent in his grasp, and whispered into the stars, "May the flame never die, for in it both gods and mortals find eternity." The flame of Prometheus glowed steady in mortal hands. The eternal throne pulsed brighter than ever. Yet within Olympus, a new challenge was rising. The gods had vowed to guard, not rule, but harmony among immortals was never easily won. Zeus summoned the council once more. The marble hall shimmered with the throne's glow, yet whispers of discord lingered like storms not spent. Poseidon's voice rolled like waves on stone. If mortals keep the flame, who guards the seas? Who shields their voyages and storms? Apollo's voice cut sharp as sunlight. They sing of us. If their flame grows bright, our music must not fade. Shall light yield to shadow? Athena raised her hand, calm and firm. The flame does not diminish us. It binds us. Without harmony, the throne cannot endure. Ares leaned forward, restless and fiery. And what of war? Do we silence swords? Mortals breathe conflict as they breathe air. Hestia's voice was soft yet steady. Even war must return to the hearth. Fire cannot burn without rest. Conflict has its place, and so does peace. The hall grew silent. Each god guarded pride, each their own domain, but the throne pulsed brighter, sending forth a vision. They saw mortals braving seas and tending fields. Poets sang to stars. Soldiers returned to hearths, not bound by dominion, but by harmony. Themis rose, calm as justice itself. The throne demands not silence, but balance. Harmony weaves many voices into one. All eyes turned to Zeus. He was king, yet bound by truth as well. He knew harmony would not come by decree, but by choice. Zeus spoke, thunder quiet in his tone. Eternity lives in balance, not dominion. We must weave our gifts together, or the throne will dim. Hera's pride softened into thought. If harmony is to endure, we must see not only ourselves, but one another. Poseidon's storm began to calm. Apollo's light softened into warmth. Even Ares leaned back, fire tempered by thought. Then came a sound through the chamber. Not thunder, nor waves, nor song. It was the heartbeat of the eternal throne, pulsing steady, alive, unyielding. The gods felt it echo in their chests. Not a command, but an invitation. Not a law, but a promise. They bowed their heads not to Zeus, not to each other, but to the flame that bound them all. Harmony was not silence, nor the end of conflict. It was the balance that allowed eternity to endure. The vision faded, leaving the gods in reflection. Olympus fell quiet, not with discord, but peace. Zeus lifted his hand, not in command, but unity. Let us guard the flame together, for only in harmony does the throne shine. The throne glowed brighter than sunrise. Its light stretched to gods and mortals alike. From that day, Olympus was no longer a battlefield of voices. It became a chorus guardians, not rulers. And harmony, fragile yet eternal, became their song. The eternal throne glowed steady, timeless in its light. Olympus stood not as a fortress, but as a beacon above the world. Mortals looked upward and felt not fear, but kinship, for their flame was guarded, not owned. And the gods had learned to stand beside, not above. Zeus gazed across the heavens, his eyes filled with quiet pride. He remembered storms and tempests, wars of old and defiance. Yet now, he saw a brighter truth. Eternity lived in harmony. The council of Olympus no longer clashed like thunder. They spoke as a chorus, their voices weaving strength. Hera, fierce yet compassionate, tempered her pride with care. Poseidon let his tides roll, yet yielded to balance. Apollo shone with light that warmed, not burned. Athena guided wisdom with patience, her hand steady. Even Ares, restless flame, had found quiet purpose. And Hestia's fire burned at the heart of all. Mortals carried their own flames, fragile, yet enduring. Stories passed from parent to child, songs sung beneath the stars. Dreamers built bridges, sailors braved storms, poets chased dawn. Every spark became part of the throne's glow. The gift of Prometheus no longer seemed rebellion. It was a promise, fulfilled, a bond, unbroken. Zeus walked once more among mortals, cloaked in humility. He saw their struggles, their triumphs, their laughter and firelight. And he smiled, for he knew eternity was shared. The eternal throne pulsed brighter than ever before. Its heartbeat was not only the gods, but the worlds. Together, divine and mortal had woven harmony. And harmony, fragile yet eternal, would hold forever. The story of Zeus and the eternal throne was no longer a tale of power. It was a story of balance, of promise, of light unending. And so, The flame endured.